I'm here with the amazing Stu of Spiritworld to talk about Helldorado. By the way, I love the title of this new record. It comes out March 21st on Century Media. I want to start this conversation by apologizing to you for the fact that I discover you guys late in my existence and late in your discography with the song Ulcer on Liquid Metal. And I remember receiving the album promo in my inbox, and it had this Western theme to it. It looked like Red Dead Redemption, whatever that video game is. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is for me, even though I'm a huge John Wayne fan. And I didn't review the album. And then when I heard Ulcer, I was like, what the fuck was wrong with me? These guys are amazing. And then I saw you guys on the tour with Creator and Sepultura, and that just solidified my love for what you guys do. So I want to start off this by saying sorry that I jumped on the bandwagon a little bit late.
Hey, better late than never. No apology needed, man. It's all good. I'm
So
just happy you're here now.
yeah, no, dude, I'm balls deep. I'm balls deep right now in terms of what you guys do. Let me actually start off by that. Where does the inspiration for the Western themes comes from? Is that something from your childhood?
Yeah, my family on my mom's side come up from Texas and until my mom was like 20, um they were living in a ranch north of Las Vegas a couple hours, and so there were actually two places. They had the lower place and then the upper where they live, but like they raised beefs and just did all the just ranch stuff. And I kind of just came up in a family that had a pretty Western upbringing. And like when I was younger, me and my twin brother, I had a bunch of cousins who loved rodeo, and like my older brother Chris got the bug. And so probably until right before high school, like did a lot of like junior rodeo stuff, and we were living in Idaho at the time. And so always loved country music, always loved, fishing and just a lot of that outdoor Western stuff. I just kind of grew up like that. And so at the same time, like I love music, love heavy music, love punk rock, fast, hard stuff I really like. And so as I got older and decided I wanted to do another band, I really wanted to do a project that was like just combine things that I really like. And so I love horror films. I love reading Western books and films and love heavy metal. So I kind of just put all these little things together. And on paper, just like you said, you looked at the cover and you're like, yeah, that ain't for me, which I get because no one else really has done like put this stuff together in this way. But for me, it's just kind of stuff I really love. And I think I just try and find a way to do something that if I found it would be my favorite band. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of simple.
Yeah, you guys definitely do it for me. I was talking to my son about this upcoming record. We actually going to be checking out one of the singles on our channel next week. And if you ask him one of the memories that he has from being a little kid is me sitting down with him in the sofa and watching all day John Wayne on like the AMC network and shit like that. And he knows how much I love
Yeah.
John Wayne. For my birthday, he actually got me a John Wayne poster for my bedroom. Like I'm a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
fan of Westerns and things like that. So you guys definitely scratch a very specific itch that I have.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's like my girl's from Idaho, and like when we were up there, like watch Rio Bravo with her dad. It was just like on some weird cable station. And like I grew up with like Westerns. Like my mom stays with us now. She had some health issues, but the other day, like she's just watching Gunsmoke, like fucking just binging the shit out of it. So like when I was little and growing up, it was a lot more prevalent, I think, because the whole, at least in the US, like through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like the Western, like cowboy shit was like, you could not escape it. It was like the biggest thing in Hollywood and anywhere else. So I just feel like my family's a little older. I was the fifth of six kids. I got a twin brother, but like my parents were like older when they had me, so like, my mom's 80 and I guess I kind of came up in that like different, you know, what that older generation was still fucking with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It was the same with me with my dad. He's the one that introduced me to westerns and John Wayne and you know all that kind of good shit, The Rifleman and Bonanza and all of that kind of stuff. So for this album, Helldorado, how did you guys approach this record? Was it any different from the previous records from a creative standpoint?
Um, yes and no. I mean, the main difference is like I wrote the whole thing, demoed it out, and then recorded with my buddy Sam Pura. And so this is a third record we've kind of done. So those things stayed the same. I mean, we refined the approach and changed things, but kind of very similar. But one of the bigger differences is because we've toured a bunch since um, Pagan Rhythms and Off of Death Western, that our live drummer, Preston Harper, I got to collaborate with him after, a certain point on the demos, and he was able to come in and like listen to all the drum MIDI that I wrote and, kind of like edit that and like get it into shape. And then he tracked the drums. So that was cool because up to this point, I've done a lot of it's been kind of split where there's like a studio project that's kind of like a solo thing, and then the live version is different. So it was really nice to hang out with my homeboy that I spend time in the van and work on this record and track it. And then kind of creatively, I think once I figured out what I was going to do, I think I just allowed myself to not worry about any sort of a like set of rules, and I just wrote what I thought was cool. And so I think on this album, if you listen to it front to back, like you can hear like a cinematic version of what I'm trying to convey with the storytelling. But if you were to grab songs and just pick one and throw it out, it might not even sound like Spirit World if you just send it randomly to somebody. And that's not something that I like set out to do, is but just in the process of allowing myself to, if I want to grab an acoustic guitar or whatever, just like make music and, chase what I find is exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that takes me to my next point because how do you uh, make it work when you try to put a song like No Vacancy in Heaven and Prayer Lips together on the same track listing? Because they're very different from one another, but somehow you guys made it work. So is it you guys make it work sonically somehow, or the way you place those tracks on the track listing is how they allow to coexist with one another?
Um, the real answer is I just make what I think is cool. Like that's it. And so like as far as it working and the sequencing and stuff like that, by the time I share any of this, like with our producer or anybody, I basically have the record already worked out. So I have like all the songs. And I think I want to say it might have been this exact track listing. Maybe I think Waiting on the Reaper, and I think I switched a couple, like one song from side A to side B. But basically I just when I write, I'm like, I need to start a record, and then you get to the end of side one, and then you got to flip it over. So if somebody grabs an LP and you start with side B, like I try to be conscious of you almost need to engage somebody again. And that's an old school thing just because I grew up listening to records, and I understand in the streaming age that kids will grab three or four songs, throw it on a playlist with you have no control over how it gets consumed anymore. But for me, like I kind of just pay homage to that because I grew up in a time period where that's how you consume music. So making things work is kind of a nonstop battle. So as I'm writing this stuff, I'm like, okay, if I come out and I do this and I have these songs that are going to be a little different instrumentation, I don't want to do six metal songs in a row and then have the backside of the record be all experimental. So you kind of just, try and make it go like this somehow that feels, at least feels to me that like you can listen through it without skipping a bunch of shit and losing the momentum of the album, you know?
I agree with you. The album has a clear defined side A and side B. Both side A and side B start off with very similar, heavy tracks, and they both close off with very similar, more ballad-like style country songs. So the record definitely has that defined break between one and the other, but is equally strong on both sides.
Yeah, and I just have a really short attention span.
Is that why the album is short?
Yeah, I can't listen to, I mean, I really I can't think of a band that makes like 45-minute, hour-long records that I actually listen through. And I've always kind of been like that. That's what really attracted me to more aggressive music, I think, because when I was little, you could grab a tape and like a punk band or a hardcore band or like a thrash band will do so much in 30 minutes and then it's done. And then you're like, wow. And then you play it again. Whereas if I try to listen to like, I don't know, like if somebody gave me like a big hip hop band that had 18 tracks and it was, you know what I mean, like 70 minutes of music, like I guarantee you, if I made it through the whole thing, I never once fucking found a record like that that I hit play again and sat there for, you know, 140 minutes. So I think that's just me. Like, I try to make my band all the things that I appreciate and look for in other projects. I just try and hone in on that because that's what I look for. And I don't know if other people are the same. So I just really go by my own taste. It's like on every step of the thing, I just try to,
I'm 100% with you. 100% because I listen to a lot of my music on my drive to work, and my drive is around 40 minutes to 45. If the record is any longer than that, I end up skipping always the back end of the record because the next time I
yeah.
get in the car, I'm not going to start the album on song 10. I'm just going to start again on song 1. So the bottom end of the record gets no love because of it. I'm with you. And I think you have to also understand the type of music you're creating. And for the sound that you guys have on Helldorado being around the 35-minute mark, I think it's flawless for a record like this.
Yeah. And it's, some of the stuff too, I have to, like we have a contract, so it's like I have to turn in 10 compositions and there's like certain parameters, that contractually I'm obligated to do. Because I think I probably would have preferred like an 8 or 9 track record and I would have cut this even more. But, you have to, I'm also the type of person, if I get my word, I'm going to do something, then like make that work. You know what I mean? So that's also the thing is when I say there's no rules, that comes in the context of there's a bunch of little fucking rules you have to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I get it. I get it. When it comes to the lyrics, how is that for you? Do you write all the time, or do you listen to the songs and then from there you develop what the lyrical content is going to be like?
um, this album was different because I did have stuff that I'd written and I'm trying to think. It, I did a little bit of everything. There was stuff where I had like, I want to say like Waiting on the Reaper. I probably wrote that on an acoustic guitar and it was a country song first, and so like all those like patterns and things was probably like done. And then after I had that song and I'm like, I really want this because it's a longer track. I wanted to have like a lot of a storytelling lyric approach to that. And so then I probably had most of those lyrics and I was like, let's just rework this and put it in there because there's a lot of cool imagery and stuff. But then there's stuff where I have the whole track done and I'm listening to it and there's no vocals at all. And so then I'm like, put it on in the headphones and, going for a walk or whatever I'm doing chores. And I'm like, at some point you kind of just gotta like put shit together. And so as much as I like to plan stuff, I try to have grace for my creative process and allow myself room and be like, I don't have anything prepared. I'm going to hit record and just start whatever comes out of my mouth. Maybe it'll take me somewhere. And so I try to do a little bit of everything because I think you do things if you're under the gun and you're recording, and like Oblivion was like that. Like there's a section in the song like before a drum break where whatever is going on, like I did like a scream and then it like brings in the next part. Like I didn't write any of that. That was all just like the first thing that I tried when I hit record. And then like I had John from Black Braid came in and he comes in right after that. But stuff like that, I didn't really ever think about it. I just did it. And then that's what ends up there. And so if I had tried to write it, I don't know if I probably would have did something totally different. You know what I mean?
Vocally, how was this album for you?
It was cool. I recorded most of the vocals at my house. And because of that, I think I definitely, because Death Western, like in Pagan Rhythms, I did so much hard screaming. And while I like how that sounds on a record, the truth is, like when you make metal records like that, you're screaming the every word, everything is at 120%. And so like you have those, like you listen to a line and it's like deep breath, punch in and do that line as absolutely forceful and perfect and nasty as you can, and then double track it. And like those had like between 4 and 6 vocal, like all stacked and like edited. And I love like going crazy on the production on one hand, the way that it sounds and like it's just brutal and hard. But then it's also a thing where when you play live, I really like bands that just play music, you know? Like I love going to see all types of music. And I'm not somebody that when I watch a band and they've got like a bunch of backing tracks and then there's like harmonies that aren't there and they have all these effects, like that doesn't really speak to me as much as when I see a band and it's like, even if the album has all this slick production, but then they play and it's like a stripped down thing. There's 4 people and everything you hear is only what they do. And so I think I'm moving more towards that where like when you start a band and you make records, you get to pick and choose what you want to be, right? And so the production in heavy metal is, I mean, it's so scientific and you can just pick apart shit and fucking edit guitars and everything down to the like most minuscule thing. And I think where I want to go as like an artist is I really like performing stuff and making it more of a just what we do, you know? So most of the vocals on this, it's like doing a take of the track and doing it kind of old school, like where you can't do everything at 120% because you've got to do it all in one go. And so I definitely I'm sure people notice quite a big difference on the vocals, but part of that is because one, I wanted it to be more of a natural thing. Like this record way more than the last two. If I just grab a microphone and just did like a one take of this album, it's probably going to be somewhere in the vicinity of what's on the record, more so than like, you know what I mean? Spending 6 hours tracking vocals for one song. You know what I mean?
I'm with you on that. I really like when a band records a record, and I had that vibe listening to this album where you bring the live energy into the studio. So it almost feels like a live studio album, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's something me and Sam Pura talked about a lot is because you get to that's the cool thing about being a band that's like nobody's asking us or really informing us on like how to do this, but when you hear about people taking time to develop, like that's what that is you make a record and then you say, am I making the record that I want to make? Do I want to change the process? Do I want to change the way it feels to record? And so you make all these decisions ahead of time and you kind of guess on how it's going to go. But I think when you listen to Helldorado compared to what a lot of people are doing in metal, you can totally hear that like there's a band playing this stuff and it's not so over, just so like cut apart where it's, you know. sounds like a computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, lacking soul, maybe that's a good way to describe it. Uh,
Yeah, and I don't have a horse in that race except trying to do what I think is interesting because I like very cold industrial and electronic music too, where there is no per se soul. And I was talking to some friends about the AI stuff, and I'm like, kind of my take on that is if I see or I hear something, whether it's a film, art, music, a book, whatever it is, like when I find something that I consume that I love, and then I find out it's AI, am I like gonna hate it because it's AI? Like, I don't think so. I know people are scared because whatever AI may put some people out of work, but in my life, anything that I find that I really love and connect with, I've never been the type of person to like say, "Oh, well, I can't like that because whatever it could be." You know what I mean? It's so I kind of feel like there's no wrong way to do things, and I think it's just the end result. Do you connect with it or not? You know?
and that's what art is all about. And speaking about connecting, you mentioned John from Black Braid, but I want to go this question on a different direction. Is there someone in the country world, some singer that you would love to have on a future record?
Yeah, tons of people. I mean, the collaboration part of being in a band is cool. Like, just like you getting to do these interviews, anytime you get to, in my day to day, I don't live in a neighborhood that's filled with artists and musicians and creatives. I live in a neighborhood that was built in the early 70s, and there's not a lot of young families. It's a lot of kind of older folks. And so when I walk out my door, I work remote for my job now, so I don't really interact with a lot of human beings. And so like the fact that I can write songs and then I can have people like Zach from Rise Against or like bring in my homies from Black Braid or Creator or somebody else. Like I love that aspect of it because it just shrinks the world down, you know? And I love country music just as much as I do heavy metal. So there's tons of folks in that realm that I'm sure love metal too. And as this thing like goes and we tour and I think this record, from what I gather from people talking to me about it, I feel like um, there's some sort of like energy where people are like, "Oh wow, this band is doing some things that could probably, I don't know, maybe be like a band like Clutch or Mastodon or something where, you kind of break through that wall of this is a metal band. This is every once in a while people are allowed to do whatever they want and get accepted by for what they make, not what scene they're from." And for some reason, I get the impression that people feel like that's what this record is doing, which is not something that I think is you can do intentional. I think you just make a record, and I think the listener decides if, you're allowed to be a unicorn that can do whatever you want, you know?
I agree with that view of this record. This record has that ability to bring different worlds together, and I think you guys are super cool. Having seen you guys live, you guys are super cool on stage, and it's such a nice vibe listening to you guys that I think that also helps tear down the walls, and people are able to be a lot more accommodating, and they're able to welcome you guys regardless of genres or predetermined ideas of what a metal band should sound like or look like, considering how you guys look on stage.
Yeah, I agree. And those are all things that like I'm aware of being a rabid fan of music, and like I spend a lot of my free time still going to shows and always have since I was old enough to bug somebody to give me a ride to a show. I've never stopped going and watching, all my favorite underground bands and all the big bands I like. And so when I got to thinking about the kind of band I would do, like I want to do, big stage productions and, you know, that is very interesting to me, more so than it is appealing to just, wear your work clothes and show up and walk from the stage up on stage and play. Like, don't get me wrong, I wish sometimes when it's really hot and our suits are gross, like I wish I was just like, a little dressed down. But if I'm being honest, my desire is to go the other way, like push that side of it as far as I can too, because like I wear a hoodie all day. When I go on tour, it's fun to play dress up and like imagine being able to be like an Iron Maiden or something like that's I guess like the big dream stuff I have, I try to like plant the seeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so you can get there rather than try to backtrack.
I think it's super cool. Like when I saw you guys on that tour with Sepultura and Creator, and I see you guys coming on stage, I don't know, are you gonna play some Garth Brooks or something? And then you're like a hardcore band, like a crossover thrash, like very aggressive, in your face, very intense. I think that dichotomy of those two contrasts works so well that it's so captivating that you kind of need more of that, because for me, a show is not just the music. The show is everything. What you guys do on stage is as important as the music that you're playing. Everything is the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like as we start like doing headliners and things, I want our live show to be a more unique and varied experience because right now, like our set list, it's really, really aggressive. And you only get, we get like 25, 26 minutes, to play stuff. And when you're playing with all these like super heavy bands, like I know people that listen to Death Western, the main thing, they love the riffs and they want to like bang their head. So we've really been just like blasting this super aggressive set list. But as we expand and get to do our own thing, I want it to be similar to Helldorado, not not sonically, but the way it feels, where like our live show with the visual and like the stage show, like you watch it and there's like peaks and valleys of intensity and, maybe some like quieter, more sweeter, beautiful moments and then pick it up. Because I really get interested in how like folks can do things with an audience. Like when I'm watching a show, I really like when somebody can captivate somebody with like a big pop hit, but then also when they hit their deep cuts, how do you keep the like kind of normie fringe fan of your band engaged? Like if you go see Nick Cave or Tom Waits or somebody, like there's a lot going on. And, if you just punish somebody for 90 minutes with no if you don't care about what the audience is getting out of it, sometimes even my favorite stuff, it's a little self-serving and it's hard to really enjoy it. Like if you go see Bob Dylan, for example, it's now people know what you're getting, but there's a time period when I was young where you go see Bob Dylan and you're like, what the fuck? Doesn't play like doesn't play any of the hits, and the ones he does, he completely changes the tempos, the beats, everything about it to the point where you can't even sing along. And so I want to be a band that can like push all of those things, but just like the records, like my rules of what I love, I want to be one of those bands where the live show gets done and you're like, wow, that's completely different than the records. You have to go see this band live because nobody else does anything like it. And I think that's where if you can do that and make great records, I mean, you're pretty much like that's the goal, to be that good.
I felt the same way when I went to see, well, every time I've gone to see Bruce Springsteen. Like the guy brings out songs that like you have to be a diehard fan to even ever heard some of the tracks that he brings out, and but he does a phenomenal job playing for like 4+ hours and still keeping everybody in it.
Yeah.
Like that's a skill on its own. I know we're running out of time, dude, but I just want to ask you one really quick thing, which is you're going to be on a massive tour with Obituary. You guys are coming to the center of the universe, which is Toronto, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm so excited to see you guys live again in Toronto on that Obituary tour. Give me a few words about that tour and what it means to you guys to hit the road with those iconic guys and obviously support your brand new record.
I mean it's like living the dream stuff. If there wasn't like Obituary, Terror, and Nails, like those three bands, are all super near and dear to my heart. Like our first tour with Spiritworld, we like I don't know, we did like 2 weeks on the Decibel tour with Obituary, and I've known the Terror guys since Scott's old band, Buried Alive. Like I booked them and like literally was watching Terror on their first tour, booking them at my junkyard, and back when Todd Jones from Nails was in the band. And so it's just a special thing, like the way that things line up when we got the offer. It's like 3 weeks after the record comes out, and you get to go play beautiful theaters with a lineup of like those are three bands that I would go see no matter who they're on tour with. And so I'm just blessed to get to do things like that because it's so cool. Like you sit by yourself and make records, and then when you think about playing live, you start adding it all up, and it's like, yeah, we're going to Toronto, but like not only are Toronto shows great for us every time, but we just play so many like awesome tours that it's really the best. You know, if you could write on paper, like leaving your house to go play shows, what do you want to do? It's like, that's what we're doing, which is fucking crazy, you know?
Well, I'll be at the Toronto show. You'll see me there and the crowd. I'll be going nuts. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the new tracks on that set list. Stu, man, thank you very much for your time. You don't know how many boxes you checked today by giving me the opportunity to talk to you. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate everybody that whether you find us come late or whatever. I tell my band all the time, I feel like our biggest fans and our biggest supporters have never even heard of us yet. I feel like we're just hitting our stride. And me, with the writing side of it, I feel like I want to be doing this for the next 20 years. So I just like, keep consistent, keep going down the track, man. So thanks for being here. Thanks for spreading the gospel of Spirit
Dude,
World.
just don't
Like,
forget about
wow.
me when you're playing arenas. Just don't forget about the little guys like me. So just make sure you have some room on that guest list for one ticket for this dude over here.
Yeah. I'll give you a +1 so you can bring your kid too, you
All
know?
right, perfect, perfect. Love it. Take care, man. All the best.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.